I got into Opeth probably around the same time I got into Dream Theater. If you've seen my review of their Along for the Ride tour concert. Um, but yeah, they always had a really unique style, and I was really into progressive music at the time, and they just had a really awesome sound, and I loved how diverse they were. And I'm like, hey, this is pretty cool. We got this Swedish band that does all different types of music, and their lead singer does death growls and clean vocals. So when I found that they were coming to do a tour, I'm just like, I'm on board for this. And the funny thing about the Pale Communion album is I don't know what plan I was on. I must not have just been under a rock. I must have been under a freaking boulder to have not heard that Pale Communion came out. And I didn't hear about it coming out until probably 2 months after it came out. I'm like, where have I been? They certainly haven't advertised it anywhere I've been looking. But I saw that they were doing a tour for their album, and I thought, oh sure, I'll go see them live. Since I've been listening to all their earlier stuff, like their heavy stuff, along with the newer like heritage stuff. Now, when I got to the concert, I thought the concert was just going to be 3 straight hours of Opeth. And I feel like that's the way it should have been. Because Opeth has done 3-hour shows before. They definitely have enough material to fill up those 3 hours. But they got 2 opening acts. The first one was Red Fang, band from Oregon. Or is it Oregon? Am I the only one who says Oregon? Whatever. They're from Oregon, and their style it's kind of reminiscent of Opeth, but there's also kind of a hint of Black Sabbath in there. And I forget what song it was. It was the third to last song, I think. It really sounded like Black Sabbath, and I'm like, yeah, these guys are pretty cool. They're pretty diverse. They have a pretty interesting sound. They were a pretty good opening act. I look forward to who's next. Now, for all you In Flames fans out there, I'm not a fan of In Flames. I went to this concert to see Opeth. I didn't even know In Flames existed until like the day of the show, so I of course didn't know any of their songs. I mean, they're pretty straight up symphonic melodic metal. The only melodic death metal band I ever really listened to was Death Clock, just because Metalocalypse is an awesome show, and canceling it, quite frankly, Adult Swim, was a mistake, and you should have kept it going for as long as you could. But, yeah. I mean, they played for, I want to say, 75 minutes. It was a fairly long set, so they did what I assume is all their big songs because the audience was pretty involved. And I love this one thing, the 2 things actually the frontman said. I don't know his name. I didn't look up any of the band members or anything. But he said he saw someone recording with his phone like this, and he said something like, hey, I see you recording there. And then he addressed the whole crowd. Hey guys, you paid money to come see the show, so you might want to look at the stage every once in a while. Because no matter how close you are, there's inevitably going to be one of your friends in the balcony recording it in better quality than you, so you can watch it tomorrow on YouTube. And I'm like, yes, thank you. That is so true. And then It kind of reminds me of my one friend. Keep in mind, she's a girl, so she went to see One Direction, and at the One Direction show, like, all the little girls had their phones out recording the whole show, and I'm just like, well, they missed the whole show. They were watching it through their phone. You go to a live show, to see the performer in person. Just, like, when I go to concerts, I take a few pictures and maybe a couple videos. And other than that, I just sit back and enjoy the show. So I'm glad he brought that up. And speaking of One Direction, he, somebody, I don't know, they probably shouted something like, "Fuck One Direction." And the guy was like, "Oh, so you don't like boy bands? Hey, we're a boy band. The only difference is we have beards. Ladies, never trust a man without a beard." And I don't know. Beards, I don't know if I'll ever grow one. They seem a little high maintenance to me. I mean, I'm growing my hair out for the first time in my life. So, and I mean, having all of this to deal with is problematic enough. That's just, I don't know. If you have beards and you are a beard apologist, feel free to explain how amazing beards are in the comment section. But anyways, they played, it was a pretty good set, kind of, sort of similar to the Lamb of God show I was talking about back in my Lamb of God review, if you want to check that out. But it took a while for them to set everything up for Opeth, just because Johan is his name. I don't know. Their keyboardist had to set up his Hammond organ and all the other keyboards he has, and they had to get the big backdrop with the Pale Communion album cover with the three windows or whatever they are. But anyways, that music, all you Opeth fans know that music they play right before they go on stage. You know what I'm talking about. They played that and I'm like, yes, I know from getting two of their live albums that they're going to be on stage soon. They're going to be on stage soon. And what do you know, a minute later, they all just kind of nonchalantly walk out on stage. And we're like, yay! Oh, and Martin Mendez cut his hair short. His hair was like really, really short. Like, you know how on, like, all other Opeth tours he had really long hair, like, down to here? But now his hair, it was almost like a buzz cut. And I just, like, I even shouted to him because I was in maybe the 10th row. So I was close enough to go, "What happened to your hair?" And everybody around me just kind of laughed. But, so they started off with the first two songs from the new album, "Eternal Rings Will Come in Cusp of Eternity," and that blended in with Into the Drapery Falls, which is one of my favorite Opeth songs, just because it starts off clean, but then builds up into something heavy, but then gets clean toward the end again. But yeah, their guitars all sounded great. As far as voice goes, Michael Achfeldt's voice hasn't really changed over the years, so he still sounds exactly like he does in all the recorded versions of his songs. And even though only 2 of the 5 original members from the old music, and technically Michael's the only original member from like the really early songs. By the way, they didn't play anything earlier than Still Life, so there's no like Forest of October or Black Rose Immortal in this set list. So even despite that, the new people, well, I consider them new, even though they've been in the band for like 7 years at this point, like, they did a really good job filling in. So, like, they sounded just like the album, too. So, I was really impressed musically with them. And just, and I was close enough that I could, like, make out all the, like, what, I, yeah, that's his name, Frederick. Frederick and Michael were doing, just like, because I'm a guitarist and a bassist. I was watching Martin too. I just like watching. I was close enough to see their hands and like make out who was playing what. Because if you're in a band, when you have a band with multiple guitarists and you hear like a song they recorded, sometimes it's hard to tell who's playing what just because it could be either or. Like, you never know, especially because Michael and Frederick switch between solos. Like, sometimes Michael just plays the rhythm part and other times he plays the lead part. So it was interesting to finally see in person who plays what. And because it's difficult to tell sometimes in a YouTube clip or on the DVD because the way it's edited and they're cutting between all the different people, so it's kind of hard to tell sometimes. But it was really cool to see that, and I'm glad I was able to. And then I'm probably going to put links in the description below to Michael talking in between the songs because you Opeth fans know Michael loves being a comedian in between sets, and he just loves talking. He actually didn't talk this much at that show, and I was kind of surprised. He only talked for 1 or 2 minutes most of the time, whereas in other concerts I've seen him do, he would talk for like 4 minutes. But, I mean, he can do whatever he wants as far as I'm concerned. So, after the Drapery Falls, he did I believe the Talking About Tesla video, where he talks about how there's no such thing as guilty pleasures when it comes to music, which I totally agree with. Then they did The More, which is one of my all-time favorite Opeth songs. And since I know, I never bothered to learn the whole song, but since I can play some parts of that song, I was like fingering along to it. I know some of the words. I at least know the clean vocals because it's probably just me, but death growls are really difficult to hear. Like, I mean, it's difficult to hear what they're saying. Like, just because they're so low. Sorry. My favorite part of the song is that spacey interlude, like 6 minutes to about 9 minutes into the song. And it was, again, it's really cool to see the rhythms between the clean guitars and stuff. And I feel like Opeth is at their, like, at least from a musical perspective, they're at their pinnacle with the clean stuff. Like, that's where I feel they really shine. And I'm glad they did both a lot of clean stuff in this set list and a lot of heavy stuff. I probably threw my voice out singing along to The More too because I was just really belting it. But at least the next song was a lighter song, Window Pane. Oh, and in between The More and Window Pane, that's when they were doing the talking about the audience in Swedish thing. Oh, and by the way, if any of you guys know Swedish, feel free to let me know what they were saying in that video, because, like, they said, oh, that was Swedish, we were talking about you guys. Like, what were they saying? Were they saying nice things about us, or were they saying, man, these people are just a bunch of assholes? For all I know, that's what they could be saying. Like, I don't know Swedish. I mean, I know some German, but it's probably not very similar to any of the Nordic languages for all I know. But anyways, Window Pane, it sounds pretty much exactly like the record on this one, except, I don't know, like, I don't know if it was just a technical issue, but the rhythm guitars sound, at least Frederick's guitars, sounded a little too quiet. Like, they had to turn the volume up just a little bit more. But, like, it's kind of nitpicky, but I don't know why. It just kind of bothered me. And then the Lotus Eater was next, and I was never a big fan of that song, but after seeing it live, I have a greater appreciation for it now. And I checked it out again, and I'm like, yeah, this song's actually better than I remember. So it's always a good thing when a band does that, when they can, like, have an audience member who maybe doesn't like a particular song, then they perform that song live, and they're like, that was actually better than I remember it. Like, when you grow a greater fondness or appreciation for a song because of a live performance, that means the band's doing a good job, at least in my opinion. It could just be the live effect, of course, because nothing beats seeing a band live. And in between Lotus Eater and Deliverance is the last song, by the way, that's when Michael called me out and said he was okay, this is what happened. You can see the video in the description below. It's actually one of the most viewed videos on my channel. Definitely check it out if you haven't seen it. Skip to about 2 minutes and 8 seconds into the video, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Because, since it's a metal show, everybody was like wearing black and other drab colors, and this was the exact shirt I was wearing when I went to the show. So, when you see someone wearing a bright psychedelic tie-dye shirt in a sea of black shirts, you're gonna stand out. And he saw me recording that video, and he probably thought I was texting. So he was talking about, I don't know, sending a message or something, and he said, oh, speaking of messaging, I see you texting there. And he was probably able to pick me out just because I was wearing this super bright tie-dye shirt. And that's when everyone looked at me and went, ooh. And I actually briefly turned around to see if anyone was texting, but nobody around me had their phone out. So I'm like, wait, is he talking about me? And then I looked back at the video footage, and like later after the show, and he was pointing right at the camera. He was looking at me. I'm like, yes, yes, yes. I totally love Michael for doing that, even though he totally called me out. Like, even, like, if anything, I've gained more respect for him. I feel he's such a cool guy for doing that, in my opinion. Just, he just seems like an awesome dude to hang out with. I'd love to just bump into him someday, and I'll be like, hey, do you remember me at that show you did in Philly where I was wearing the bright tie-dye shirt, and you told me to stop texting and that I suck? Oh, and by the way, he said, you suck. And that got me laughing, and I'm like, oh, Michael, you are a wily one. You are fantastic. Wherever you are, Michael, I just want to find you, and I just want to hug you, and just, like, go, I'm going to make this sound really romantic right now. Just go to the movies with you, and just go on, like, a long stroll through the park with you. I know, in a non-romantic way, though, because it's just, you seem like a cool guy, and I want to get to know you better. Oh, I'm making it sound romantic again. Just check out that video. I'm going to stop making a fool out of myself and just talk about Deliverance the final song in the set list, and I was never a big fan of this song before going to the show, but again, after seeing the show, I have a newfound appreciation for this song. It's really good. It's like, it has such a driving beat. Like, I mean, all the riffs are just so, like, I don't want to say grating because that sounds like more negative than it does positive, but just really, they just really crunch down you. And I especially love the outro where it's literally just all just open E, like tremolo picking, like da 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 da. I don't know the exact rhythm because it's been a while since I've listened to it, but yeah, I definitely need to check it out again because it's a really underrated song in my opinion. One of their best, like their best song. I don't even know. And overall, I'm actually kind of surprised they didn't play anything from like their first 3 albums. I guess just because they're not very well known, and those albums, the recording quality on those albums isn't very good. But and I'm also surprised they didn't play stuff from the Heritage album. Actually, thinking back on it, they might not have played anything from that album because it was a new sound for Opeth. They'd never done like an album that's all like clean vocals, minimal distorted guitars, very spacey King Crimson sounding, and like I thought it was kind of cool, but I guess a lot of Opeth fans, hardcore original Opeth fans, backlashed, and they decided to play it safe on this tour. But overall, it was a solid set list, solid performances. The opening acts were great, even though I would have preferred that it would just be 3 straight hours of Opeth. The opening acts were still great, and I'm glad they played. And yeah, Opeth is a really great, really underrated band, and I highly suggest you check them out if you've never seen them before. And definitely check out that video where Michael says, "I suck."